Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl's summary. Have you ever woken up feeling like life has lost its brightness? As if each day is just another weight to carry, without purpose, without direction, and without any real emotion. Many people live exactly like this, trapped in an automatic routine, suffocated by an existential void they don't know how to fill. And this is one of the deepest pains a human being can experience. At the height of an existential crisis, when everything seems to collapse, a single question can change everything. Is there a reason for me to keep going? This was the very question Viktor Frankl faced under unimaginable circumstances. Imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, witnessing hunger, cold, and death around him every single day, not knowing if he would live to see another sunrise. And yet, he found an answer that not only saved his own life, but has transformed millions of others through the practice of logotherapy. Frankl's experience is not just a historical account. It is a psychological and spiritual map for anyone who is searching for meaning in life. His central concept, the will to meaning, challenges the idea that human beings are primarily driven by pleasure Freud or by power Adler. Instead, he demonstrates that our deepest drive is the pursuit of meaning, the need to find a reason to live, a why that can help us endure anyhow. Before we continue, if this topic resonates with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave your like, because here we explore the paths to overcome existential emptiness and turn pain into strength. When Frankl arrived at the camp, all personal belongings were taken away. Clothes, photos, letters, everything that could connect someone to their identity or their past life. Prisoners were reduced to numbers. The environment was designed to strip away dignity and hope. Every day, Frankl faced hunger so severe it could barely sustain life. Freezing cold, physical exhaustion from forced labor, and the constant presence of death. Yet, even in this environment, Frankl observed something remarkable. The prisoners who managed to survive often shared one thing in common: a clear purpose. This purpose could be the hope of reuniting with loved ones, the determination to complete unfinished work, or the commitment to a cause they deeply believed in. Those who had such a purpose found the inner strength to resist despair, even when their bodies were failing. Frankl's insight was that meaning can be found in all circumstances, even in the most miserable and dehumanizing situations. He often quoted Nietzsche, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." This belief became the foundation of his survival strategy. While others focused on immediate survival needs, Frankl mentally transported himself to the future, imagining himself giving lectures about the psychological lessons learned from the camps, visualizing his wife's face, or picturing himself finishing his manuscript on logotherapy. These mental exercises kept his hope alive and gave him reasons to endure the present suffering. The first step toward meaning, Frankl realized, was to understand that even when we cannot control our circumstances, we can always choose our attitude. This freedom, the last of human freedoms, allows us to transform suffering into growth, tragedy into triumph. Optimized insights, the search for meaning is a stronger motivator than pleasure or power. Even in the worst circumstances, we can choose our attitude. Logotherapy offers practical methods to find meaning in life, especially during suffering. In the next part, we will explore the specific psychological techniques Frankl used inside the camps, and how these same strategies can help you overcome challenges today. Inside the concentration camps, Viktor Frankl began to notice patterns in the way people responded to extreme suffering. While many surrendered to despair, others maintained an inner resilience that allowed them to endure the unimaginable. This resilience, he observed, was directly tied to whether a person had a clear sense of purpose. The camp environment was designed to break both body and spirit. Prisoners worked long hours of forced labor, often in freezing weather, with inadequate clothing and food rations so small they could barely sustain life. Illness spread quickly, and medical treatment was virtually non-existent. Adding to the physical torment was the constant psychological strain of uncertainty. No one knew if they would survive another day. Frankl realized that under such conditions, meaning was not a luxury, it was a lifeline. Without it, survival became almost impossible. He recalls moments when fellow prisoners simply lay down and refused to rise, even when ordered by guards. Their physical energy was gone, but more importantly, their reason to keep living had vanished. One of Frankl's most important insights was that meaning is deeply personal. It cannot be handed to someone by another person. It must be discovered individually. For one prisoner, meaning might be the hope of reuniting with a loved one. For another, it could be the desire to complete a creative work or to fulfill an unfinished responsibility. Frankl himself found meaning in imagining his reunion with his wife and in envisioning himself giving lectures about the psychological lessons learned from his imprisonment. These mental exercises were not mere escapism, they were deliberate strategies to sustain hope. Later, Frankl formalized these observations into logotherapy, which teaches that people can find meaning in three primary ways. 1. Through work or achievement, creating something valuable or accomplishing a task. 2. Through love, caring for someone or being cared for. 3. Through the attitude taken toward unavoidable suffering, finding a deeper purpose even in pain. Frankl emphasized that suffering itself does not inherently create meaning. Meaning emerges when we decide how to respond to suffering. This choice, he argued, represents the last of human freedoms. The ability to choose one's own attitude, regardless of circumstances. One striking conclusion from Frankl's experience is that those who survived were not necessarily the physically strongest. Rather, they were often the ones with the strongest will to meaning. In this way, psychological and spiritual strength could outweigh even severe physical limitations. Another crucial observation was the relationship between hope and responsibility. In the camps, it was easy to feel powerless, as though nothing you did could influence your fate. Yet Frankl maintained that everyone retained the power to decide how to respond. If a prisoner hoped to see their family again, they had the responsibility to care for themselves and endure. If they had a project or a duty left unfinished, they had the responsibility to survive to complete it. This link between hope and action became a critical motivator for survival. Frankl's reflections make it clear, even in an environment engineered to strip away dignity, meaning could not be taken from those who chose to hold on to it. That choice to claim meaning despite suffering was an act of inner defiance, a way of preserving humanity in the face of dehumanization. One of the most powerful strategies Viktor Frankl used to maintain his resilience in the concentration camps was mental visualization. While his body was confined to the barracks or the worksite, his mind traveled far beyond the camp walls. He often imagined himself standing in a lecture hall, speaking to students about the psychological lessons he was learning in that very moment of suffering. This mental exercise served two purposes. First, it gave him a clear and concrete goal, a reason to endure each day. Second, it transformed his suffering into something valuable, as he was already framing it as material that could help others. In the future, by imagining a positive outcome beyond his current pain, Frankl was building a bridge from the present to the future, and that bridge kept him moving forward. Frankl also used memories as an anchor. He would recall vivid moments with his wife, the sound of her voice, the way she smiled, even though he did not know if she was still alive. These memories were not a form of denial. They were a conscious choice to focus on love as a source of strength. In his view, love is one of the highest forms of meaning, and it can outlast even physical separation. Another key aspect of his survival was the practice of finding meaning in small acts. In the camps, opportunities to create or accomplish something. Meaningful were rare, but they still existed. Helping another prisoner, sharing a piece of bread, or offering words of encouragement could give a sense of dignity and purpose, even in a place designed to strip both away. Frankl emphasized that the conditions themselves, hunger, cold, abuse, were beyond his control. What remained under his control was his attitude toward those conditions. This principle lies at the heart of logotherapy. Our ultimate freedom is the power to choose our response, no matter the circumstances. He warned, however, that meaning could not be pursued directly as a goal. Instead, it emerges as a byproduct of living for something beyond oneself. Those who chased happiness or comfort as their main objective were often the first to collapse under the camp's harsh reality. In contrast, those who committed themselves to a purpose greater than their own survival tended to endure longer. Frankl's observations also challenge a common misconception that suffering automatically makes us stronger. In truth, suffering can just as easily break a person if they cannot find meaning within it. The transformation of suffering into strength requires an active, conscious choice, one that must be renewed every day. Many prisoners struggled to maintain hope when the war dragged on with no clear end in sight. For these individuals, the uncertainty itself became a form of torture. Frankl responded to this challenge by focusing on what he could control in the present moment rather than on the unknowable future. He encouraged others to adopt this mindset. If you cannot change the situation, change your attitude toward it. This approach did not eliminate the pain or the danger, but it reframed them in a way that restored a sense of agency. In a place where almost everything was stripped away, the ability to decide how to think, feel, and act became a form of inner victory. Underscore optimized insights. Mental visualization can create a bridge between present suffering and a meaningful future. Love is one of the most powerful sources of meaning, even in extreme hardship. Meaning is often found in small acts of kindness and dignity. We cannot always control our circumstances, but we can always control our response. In the next part, we'll examine how Frankl applied these lessons after leaving the camps, and how his post-war work turned the theory of logotherapy into a tool that has helped millions. When Viktor Frankl was finally liberated from the concentration camp, the world outside seemed almost surreal. He had survived the unimaginable, but now faced the challenge of living in a society that could never fully understand what he had endured. Many survivors experienced a profound sense of disconnection. The people they returned to had gone on with their lives, while the survivors themselves had been forever changed. Frankl, however, saw this transition as an opportunity to put his philosophy into action. The extreme suffering he had endured was now a source of wisdom he could share with others. He resumed his psychiatric practice and began writing and lecturing about the principles that had sustained him in the camps. One of his most important messages was that meaning is available to everyone, in every circumstance. You don't have to face a concentration camp to discover it. Challenges of everyday life can also be opportunities for finding purpose. Losing a job, enduring illness, facing the death of a loved one. Each of these can be reframed as a chance to grow, if we consciously choose our attitude toward them. In his book and lectures, Frankl often warned against the existential vacuum, a sense of emptiness and lack of direction that many people feel in modern society. Without a clear purpose, we become vulnerable to depression, addiction, and destructive behavior. According to Frankl, this vacuum is one of the greatest psychological challenges of our time. His solution was not to tell people what their meaning should be, but to help them discover it for themselves. Through logotherapy, he guided patients to reflect on their values, relationships, and goals, encouraging them to identify the unique role they could play in the world. Frankl's post-war work showed that meaning could be found in three main domains, the same ones he had identified in the camps. 1. Creative values, contributing something new through work or personal projects. 2. Experiential values, experiencing love, beauty, or truth. 3. Attitudinal values, the stance we take toward unavoidable suffering. He illustrated these principles with stories from his patients. For example, he described a man devastated by the death of his wife. Through reflection, the man realized that if he had died first, his wife would have suffered the same pain, and by surviving, he had spared her that experience. This reframing gave his life a renewed, crude sense of meaning. Frankl also addressed a common fear, that our lives are meaningless because they are finite. His answer was that life's impermanence is precisely what gives it urgency and value. Knowing that our time is limited should inspire us to make the most of every moment. Even decades after his liberation, Frankl continued to spread his message worldwide, speaking to audiences across continents. His core belief never changed. Meaning is not something we passively wait to find. It is something we actively create through our choices, our actions, and our attitudes. Optimized insights. Meaning can be found in everyday life, not just in extreme situations. The existential vacuum is a major psychological challenge of modern times. Life's impermanence gives it urgency and value. We create meaning through conscious choices, not by waiting for it to appear. In the final part, we'll conclude with Frankl's lasting legacy and how his teachings can inspire you to face your own challenges with purpose and resilience. Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl Summary. Part 5, 5th, Viktor Frankl's legacy is more than a historical account of surviving the Holocaust. It is a universal framework for living a meaningful life. His experiences in the concentration camps became the foundation for a philosophy and therapeutic approach that continues to impact millions around the world. One of the most powerful aspects of Frankl's teaching is its universality. The principles of logotherapy apply to people from all walks of life, regardless of culture, religion, or personal background. Whether you are facing loss, illness, uncertainty, or simply the daily struggle to find motivation, Frankl's message remains the same. Meaning is always available if we are willing to look for it. He often reminded audiences that we cannot always choose our circumstances, but we can always choose our response. This choice gives us the ability to transform suffering into achievement, despair into hope, and tragedy into triumph. In this way, Frankl redefined success not as the absence of struggle, but as the ability to turn struggle into purpose. Frankl also believed that meaning must be lived, not just understood intellectually. He encouraged people to commit to concrete actions that align with their values. Whether that means building relationships, creating art, helping others, or pursuing knowledge. This active engagement with life is what turns abstract ideas into tangible fulfillment. Decades after the publication of Man's Search for Meaning, the book remains a bestseller, translated into dozens of languages. Ken continues to inspire readers to take responsibility for their own lives. Psychologists, educators, and leaders still draw on Frankl's insights to guide individuals and organizations toward greater resilience and purpose. For Frankl, the pursuit of meaning is not a one-time revelation, but a lifelong process. Circumstances change, challenges arise, and our sense of purpose evolves with them. What remains constant is the human capacity to find significance in life, even and especially in the face of suffering. As you reflect on Frankl's story, consider your own why. What values, relationships, and goals give your life direction? How can you act on them today, even in small ways? These questions are not just philosophical, they are practical. Tools for building a life that feels worthwhile. Optimized Insights Meaning is available to everyone, regardless of their circumstances. We define success not by avoiding struggle, but by transforming it into purpose. Meaning must be lived through concrete actions aligned with personal values. The search for meaning is a lifelong process that evolves. With life's changes, if this summary of Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl inspired you, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring more life-changing ideas to you. And if you want to keep learning, check out the next video we've prepared for you. It's packed with insights to help you live with more purpose and resilience.